Hi, this is MGT584, Details of Assessment 1. So, there are four assessment items in this subject, and we talked about this on our first online meeting today, the 15th of July. So you should have a little bit of an idea if you've listened to that recording. So the first one is due, there are two postings, one on the 26th of July and one on the 31st of July, and that's 10%. Then you'll have three other assessments, which I'll talk about in separate videos. Just want to make the point though that all of these assessments nest into each other. So the work that you do on Assessment 1 will inform how you work with your team. There are 6 teams. How you work with your team to launch it, to set it up, which will inform your first assessment, which is an individual report, an academic essay on launching a virtual team. The second assessment is a group assessment where you will present a pekakushka, and that will be done in September. And all of the information that you've gathered for launching the team, the Workstyles, all of the work you've done will inform that, and you'll also have an individual reflection, which is really important. And then your final report will really be based on the whole of the session's work and that work you've done in your teams. So you'll have to notice the group dynamics. So make sure that you contribute to the team's effectiveness and functioning and the presentation, because all of these assessments are informed by that teamwork. So Assessment 1, as I said, is due, the first posting is due on the 26th of July, the second on the 31st of July. The length is 800 words. Now, 800 words, either way, 800 words can be your first post and then your second post. I'm not going to die in a ditch over the word length. However, if it's very, very small, say less than 500 words, you will be marked down. And if you start to write about war and peace and it's, way over 1,000 words, I may take some marks off as well. So your first task is to, the part A is to read the article by Vic Bird and Chris Fort on pioneers, drivers, integrators and guardians. They're the 4 types, and we'll just talk about those on the next page. And then you will look at the profile at a glance on page 57 and decide where you locate yourself. Now, when we get to the next page, we'll talk about this a bit more. Then you've got to read a further 2 pages from Beard. And that is how Workstyles inform leadership. And I think I might have referenced the wrong thing at the end of this because of links. But anyway, this one is what you've got to read. And there's a link to that as well in the subject outline. Remember that the subject outline is the font of all knowledge always. The submission is not through Easts. The submission is just onto your own group discussion board. And you don't need to cut and paste and repurpose that to East. So I'll look at the group discussion boards and I'll mark accordingly with the marking rubric, which we'll chat about. So there are 4 main work styles, and you will be drawn to one more than the other. It was identified in our online meeting today that a lot of people are pioneers and integrators, and as we can see here, there is some similarities as a crossover. So we have characteristics that share in adjacent types. So the PI would be optimistic, spontaneously generous, big picture thinkers, emotionally expressive and collaborative. Okay? Then we have, over the other side, we have drivers and we have guardians. And quite often we will have a driver who is also got a bit of guardian. They're skeptical, they're a planner, concrete, they like realistic, they like facts. They are emotionally contained, so don't talk about feelings. They prefer to keep those feelings to themselves until they know you a lot better, and then they will step into that territory. They're time bound as well. Very, very time bound. So look at all of these, look at the adjacent ones. You will be different in different situations. So remember that. So, for instance, at work and working with others, I am possibly more of a driver guardian. When I'm working in other situations, for instance, when I'm working in coast care, I'd probably be much more of an integrator, and I'm much more there to just go with the flow, to enjoy what I'm doing, to hang out with the people who enjoy doing coast care. So, in different situations you may act differently, but you'll have a preference. And so think about your work situation and your preference. So to the group discussion board, want you to post responding to these 4 questions. Was there anything new or surprising that you learnt about yourself in undertaking this? And I mean, there's lots and lots of personality profiles, there's lots and lots of checklists, you name it. My advice to your teams would be not to get too hung up on too many of these, like you could do Myers-Briggs or Major's personality, etc. Just use this one as an entree into working together as a team. And then you might want to look at, some of your strengths. You might like to share some of your vulnerabilities, to share your skills. So you might have technical skills, you might have skills in coaching, whatever. But don't get too head up about doing too many checklists and too many inventories, because that can take away from actually the doing. So was there anything new or surprising that you learnt about yourself? So this might display some of your vulnerabilities. Did this exercise help you to better understand tensions you may have experienced in the past with a work colleague or work colleagues or with people? Now that you have looked at Workstyles, briefly describe your cultural background and discuss how this may have influenced your work style. Interesting. So we're going to expose cultural differences, which is a really important thing to do. It's an important aspect of team building. How do you think an understanding of different work styles and cultural difference could help you and your teams when you start to work in your virtual teams? So you might want to talk about that as well. Now note that you need to make this post to your own group board, and I've opened up all of the group discussion boards for the subject. Okay, and those group discussion boards are found in your team site. You just click on Group Tools, you'll see Group Discussion Board, click on that and you'll see the thread for Workstyles. Part B is due by the 31st of July and the value is 5%. So respond to forum posts from your fellow group members. You do not have to respond to everyone. You're not going to get a gold star for actually responding to everyone. You may just have some really insightful responses to 1 or 2 of your colleagues. So don't beat yourself up if you don't have time to respond to everyone. So we want rich responses. So your responses will include insights about the group team composition, considering the different work styles. So you might just post up there that's responding to the whole group, okay? And how the group composition may facilitate the group's working relationship and learning experience. So this is an academic piece of writing. However, referencing and citations always do strengthen work, okay, and indicate wider research. But I'm not going to mark you down if there are no references or citations in these posts. So don't worry too much, particularly if you're new to study. So always look at the marking rubric, because it will be a signpost for you and it will guide you to the marking. So before, when you compiled your stuff, have a look at this before you post it up. So the first one is addresses each aspect of the task with sound commentary on learning about self, background experience and applicability of work styles to the virtual teamwork. So follow the task, don't just kind of make it up, follow it. So if you want a high distinction, the postings would have to display an excellent understanding of your own self and cultural difference and how that knowledge can support the virtual team, and would integrate outside resources and relevant research. So this is where you might want to bring in your real life experiences, prior learning, etc., to support your points. And then we go down through distinction to fail. So distinction, good understanding, credit and understanding, discussion, a basic understanding, and then fail, you show little or no evidence, or sometimes people don't undertake the task, or you put in a lot of personal opinions or feelings. So always avoid putting a lot of I believe statements in there. Okay? I believe isn't really included in academic work. And loading your discussion with lots and lots of your own opinions and feelings, try to stick to a more impartial way to actually bring in real life applications that aren't kind of providing, biased or underlying unconscious bias perspectives and assumptions. So the response to any dialogue, to the dialogue with your peers, you actively and insightfully stimulate and sustain further discussion, okay? And this can be done by you build on peers' responses and peers' posts, you build a focused argument around a specific issue, or you ask a new or related question, and I really like people using questions. Questions are a leader's and a facilitator's toolkit. And you can make oppositional statements, okay? You can refute what somebody's saying, but in a really good way. And if you're an integrator, you'll know how to do that. But support it with any personal experience or work-related experience or research. And then work down there and you can see where you work to as regards to getting, a high distinction, a distinction, etc., etc. When you go to that deeper level, that's when you're much more likely to get a high distinction or a distinction. These are the references. Now this came out as Alison B when I did the EndNote, which is interesting, whereas it's actually Beard A. So I do apologise for the inappropriate referencing, but this is a really good example of how EndNote can stuff up. So if you are using EndNote, always make sure that you monitor and edit your citations, which I haven't done, so you can pull me up on that. Okay, so if there are any questions about this, post them to the assessment forum, send me an email, etc. You can put a message on you actually can't on that, so do it on the discussion forum or send me a message and I'll respond to you. Okay, so that's my email details. Best to email me first. If you want to phone me or Zoom with me, just email me first so we can set up a mutual time, because I'm sure you're busy and I'm busy as well. So that's assessment 1. Cheers.